Today I'm going to show you how to make what I think is arguably the world's best flan, which I learned from my mother. A flan is a baked pudding that's a custard that is popular in Latin America and the Iberian Peninsula and parts of North Africa, which makes sense since North Africa and the Iberian Peninsula were like one thing at one time. But okay, so here's what we're basically going to do today. We're going to pour a milk and egg mixture into a mold that has been coated in caramelized sugar and then bake that in a baño de Maria, a hot water bath, for a few hours. Okay, now here's what we actually need to do to get that done. The first thing that we'll need to get together are the ingredients. The second thing that we'll need to get together is the cooking technology, i.e. the equipment, i.e. what you probably have in your kitchen already. All right. The necessary ingredients for the flan that we're going to make today are 6 eggs. It doesn't matter what size they are. It doesn't matter if they're from the farmer's market or whatever. But six eggs. I have about 6 medium eggs. We're going to need 2 cans of sweetened condensed milk. So I'm going to show you my can, which is here. Yes, I've got the cheap Associated grocery store brand, but it's great. Notice that it's not anything like low fat or skimmed or anything like that, because this isn't exactly a low fat dessert. So 2 of these are 14 ounce. The other ingredients that you'll need are 2 cans of evaporated milk. Again, this is 12 ounces. It looks bigger, but it's actually got less in it than the sweetened condensed milk. So we've got 2 cans of evaporated milk, 2 cans of sweetened condensed milk, and 6 eggs. That's the basis for our pudding. We also have real vanilla extract. This is really important, not the imitation stuff. Whereas I will use store brand for the milk products, I like really high quality vanilla extract. It makes a big difference in the flavor. And the last ingredient is a cup of sugar. Now, I'm actually not the kind of person who pays a lot of attention to precise details and measurements, but since I'm trying to show people who haven't made a flan before how to make it, we've got a cup of sugar here, 2 cans of sweetened condensed milk, 2 cans of evaporated milk. Now, they've already been opened, but before you open them, this is something my mom taught me, so you're going to learn from my mom. Make sure you rinse the lids of what you're going to open before you open them, because they've been on the grocery store shelf and they might have dust or worse things on them. I'm going to show you what we're going to use as a mold. This is what we're going to use as a mold. It's really important that you have it very clean and very dry. I've got a mixing bowl here for the eggs. I've already cracked the eggs into it. The mixing bowl could have some water in it. That's not a big deal. This needs to be dry. Now, these are sort of the things that you need for the flan, the caramel that you're going to use to, the caramelized sugar that you're going to use to coat the mold. The equipment that you'll need is something that's like this, where you're going to pour, this is what you'll bake. You're going to need a saucepan in order to caramelize the sugar. And the last thing that you're going to need is you're going to need a larger roasting dish into which you will place this. So I'm going to grab mine so you can see what it looks like. This is my roasting dish. Eventually what will happen is it will be baked like this. Flan is cooked in a baño de Maria. There's a French word for it, but I don't speak French, and so I'm not going to use it. But the idea is that since it's got water on the outside up to about here, it cooks through the indirect heat of the water, so it moderates how hot the inside gets, because obviously once water reaches a certain temperature, it evaporates. And so even though your oven's really warm, what this actually gets cooked by is at a very controlled temperature. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually set a tea kettle with water to boil. All right, the next thing that we do is, which I've already started beforehand, is set the oven to preheat. I have it at 325 degrees, so that's being heated up. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to caramelize sugar. This is usually the part that people think is most difficult and most scary. But I have a few philosophy things that I like to do about cooking. One of them is use lots of salt, use oil, hot is good. Heating things like sugar on the stove is actually pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this video. I'm going to record what I'm doing on my little cheap camera, and I'll upload it separately so that you can see what it looks like when you're caramelizing sugar step by step. Okay, I've caramelized the sugar and I've poured it into the mold. The other little video that I recorded showed you how to do that. As I'm waiting for it to harden, I'm pouring it around the sides a little bit. I actually like to have it pretty high up on the sides. This is a little low for me, but whatever. So I'm just trying to make sure that it's distributed over the bottom. This is what gives the flan its beautiful, sweet covering that's a little bit burnt and bitter, but very, very yummy. So this is what it looks like. Again, this mold needs to be very clean and very dry before you do this, because I don't know why, but you just really need to do that. Certainly the clean part is clear. I think that the water would disturb the hardening of the caramel in a certain way, and it would make for a not as beautiful and not as nice flan, and you know, who knows what else could happen. It could cause an invasion by aliens. Okay, so I'm going to put this to the side, and I'm going to mix my custard. So the first thing I do is I mix my eggs. The reason I mix the eggs separately from the milk is that I really like them really well beat. Because I don't really like very eggy custards, and one of the things I really like about this flan is that it doesn't taste very eggy. Alright, so I've got it pretty nicely beat. I'm using a whisk. Alright, and now I'm pouring in my cans of evaporated milk. I'm going to use a spatula to help get out the sweetened condensed milk, because it's gooey and a little thicker. This stuff is lovely, and yes, you are allowed to stick your finger in the cans after you finish everything to have a final taste of the deliciousness that is sweetened condensed milk. Alright, now I'm going to stir it again so that it's pretty well mixed. And then I'm going to pour in, I don't know, 1-2 tablespoons of vanilla extract. I like it really vanilla-y, which means you do too. And again, I don't usually use measurements, but just for the sake of helping people. There's 2 tablespoons of pure vanilla extract. Alright, now that's pretty well mixed. I've got this still cooling. What happens when you pour the milk mixture into the mold before this is really cool is that the heat and the cold will cause the mixture of the two will cause the caramelized sugar to crack. This is still kind of a little soft, responsive to the touch, and it's also pretty hot. I'm not dying when I touch it, but it is certainly warm. All right, now I've already boiled my teapot of water, and my oven is heating, and I've got my mold is cooling. I've got my custard, i.e. my pudding, and my roasting pan already. Now, a quick thing about what's a pudding? A pudding in general is what is a dairy product that has been cooked with a thickening agent to make it more solid. Usually the thickening agent is egg, but it could also be cornstarch or I guess flour, and often these are cooked on the stove. Custards are puddings that are cooked inside the oven. Now some people make flan on the stove and use a big pot on the stove for their baño de Maria, their water bath. and then put a smaller mold inside of it. I prefer to do it inside the oven because that's how my mom did it, and therefore that is the right way to do it. Again, I'm waiting for this to cool a little bit. I'm going to pause and probably in about 5 minutes come and pour the custard mixture into the mold.